Welcome back to Limitless Stories, where we explore mindfulness, fitness, and relationships and how they shape how we show up in our lives. Today's guest is known as Isabel, a beauty professional turned wellness focused creator who's on a mission to redefine what confidence really means. Bella has been working for years, and after years working closely with clients and helping them feel beautiful externally, Bella began to ask a deeper question. How do we help people feel confident from within? This conversation is all about self love, self trust, and the journey of learning to show up for yourself in a way that no external validation can replace. If you've ever felt confident on the outside but unsure on the inside, this one's going to resonate. So, with that, let's dive in. Isabel, how are we doing today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Welcome to Limitless. You told me this is your first podcast.
Yep, that is correct. This is my first podcast.
Okay. How are you feeling about the nerves or your first time doing a pod?
Uh, well, so far you've done a really great job of making me feel comfortable. I love taking the 3 deep breaths before. I feel like that was really grounding and
Mm-hmm.
helps calm the nerves for sure. So I'm feeling good.
We're just gonna dive in. What originally drew you into beauty work?
Yeah, I think my story is pretty similar to a lot of lash artists, but when I was in high school, I would see all these older girls have their lashes done. And this is when lash extensions was a pretty new thing. Not a lot of people were having it done. So they were quite expensive and I wasn't working at the time. And so I knew the moment I got my first part-time job, I'm going to get my lashes done because I was just obsessed. So once I finally got my first job working as a host at Boston Pizza, I was
Mm,
able to get my lashes done, was absolutely obsessed. I just felt like I had so much more confidence with them. Pretty much just became obsessed with lashes and how they looked and how they made me feel. And
mm-hmm.
this was just something that I was so curious about the process. Like, how is she doing this? What is she doing when my eyes are closed? So
Mm, mm,
I ended up taking a lash course, and from there, I just kind of fell in love with the process and just meeting new people through it and just helping others feel, beautiful on the outside there and a little bit more confident in their own skin with it.
mm. I like that. Shout out to Boston Pizza, by the way. I love them.
Yeah.
You did mention about how you got your part-time job. Shout out to the job. Gave you money to do your lashes and you started feeling beautiful from the external. I'm
Yeah.
curious to understand, like, after years of, helping women feel beautiful externally, when did you realize confidence had to go deeper than the appearance?
Yeah, I think really from that, there's two different ways. One way is just through speaking with my clients and kind of what they're going through. It's very personal experience when people come to get their lashes done. They're laying down, their eyes are closed, they have a lot of trust in you. And so they
Mm-hmm.
tend to open up a little bit more about what's going on in their life and their
Mm-hmm.
journey and the things that they're struggling with. I just notice common themes and patterns amongst a lot of my clients. And, a lot of the problems would kind of be similar in the sense of struggling to follow through on certain habits or struggling with confidence in other areas of their life. Also, just with my own journey, I really relied heavily on external validation through other people. I think what brought me to the point of understanding how important it is to create that internal confidence, I
Mm-hmm.
really struggled just feeling good in my own skin. I felt like I always needed to have makeup on or needed my lashes to look good, to feel good. And when I didn't have that stuff, I did feel a sense of emptiness. And there was obviously like a little bit of a missing piece.
You shared some really powerful things because I what I'm picking up is there was an internal battle and there was also the patterns that you're recognizing from dealing with clients who have similar issues or things that might even reflect back to you as a person. What I want to understand is how much of you dealing with clients did that impact you to work on yourself?
I think it first came from myself. Like that
Mm,
internal confidence that I was lacking. I definitely felt it on a pretty deep level for a long time before working with clients. And that's why I say it kind of goes two ways because then once I started working with clients, I realized I saw that in other people as well. But it
mm,
was definitely something that I saw within myself, and I knew that it was something that I needed to work on. I did lack a lot of self trust and self belief. And it was something that I really struggled with.
yeah. So definitely you've worked on yourself and you've become a better version of yourself from the beginning. But how have you evolved since then?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has just come down through small, tiny actions that have compounded over time. I think the first step is getting really clear on your values and identifying how you want to live your life because I feel like identifying our values really gives us a clearer direction that we want to go in and then the steps that we can take to get there and how can we align our actions with those values. And with that, you sort of start to build self-trust along the way. You're following through on your routine and your
Mm,
promises that you make to yourself. And when you do that, that is what builds self trust. And that is what builds a knowing that no matter what, you know that you are following through on what you need to do. You're committed to yourself and to your growth. And that is what I think confidence is.
when we go back, you mentioned values and how that impacted how you showed up for yourself and building self trust. What are some of the values that you stand on today for your brand?
Yeah. Some of my values, I would say growth,
Hmm.
connection, health,
Hmm.
and responsibility, actually. Yeah.
So growth,
So growth, connection,
connection,
health,
health, and
and
responsibility.
responsibility.
Okay, take me through why you labeled them in that order. Why growth?
Growth, because I think it's so important to always be learning and to always have that beginner mindset, to really just embrace the discomfort of being a beginner and putting yourself in situations where you can continuously learn and grow and evolve. So, with growth, I love reading, listening to podcasts, I love taking new courses. I love putting myself in situations where it just pushes me a little bit more, and it kind of expands my nervous system to what I'm capable of. And continuing to show my nervous system, not just simply tell it that, you know, I can keep growing in this direction. I can keep evolving into the person that I want to become. I can keep moving my business forward in the way that I want to. So that's growth. And
Okay.
then
And let me
connection.
let me let
Oh,
me let me
sorry.
double click. Let me double click on
Yeah.
growth just one more time. Is there any instance that you've encountered recently that has challenged you to grow?
Yes, for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Um, Currently in the process of just kind of expanding my business a little bit more. As we touched, I'm a lash artist, so I obviously offer lash extensions as a service, but really been leaning a little bit more into the wellness space and what that kind of looks like for me. And one aspect is teaching mat Pilates. So that's a new course that I took last year. And this year, it has really become one of my priorities to really hone in on that craft and just a
Hmm.
lot of exciting things that have kind of pushed me to touch a little bit more into that, where I've been able to work one on one with some private clients.
Hmm.
And just yesterday, I actually taught my first paid mat Pilates class. So that was really great. And that was
That's
yeah.
fantastic. I'm proud. Congratulations.
Thank you. So, I mean, it might seem like a small little thing, but for me, that was really, really exciting and a
Nothing
huge step
nothing
with
of
my
that
business.
yeah, nothing of that magnitude is small. I feel like you've worked so hard to get to that point. So nobody really understands the journey behind that. So congratulations, and I'm super proud that you got your first paid class because it's a big deal. It is a big deal.
Thank you. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
awesome.
But thanks for sharing the growth piece. Let's go to connection. Why connection?
Connection, I think, is so important. When I say connection, there's multiple ways that I mean that. And that is connection with myself, connection with my family, with all my with my relationships, so my boyfriend, my friends, with my clients, connection to my business. So that one really runs deep. Just making sure that, I'm nurturing those connections, that I can show up the best that I can, that I'm also, you know, holding that space for myself as well, making sure that I continue to build my relationship with myself and even just with the universe too. Like whatever you
Yeah.
might believe in, just connection to that greater power as well. Yeah, definitely connection is a huge piece. Yeah,
Let me
sure.
ask you a follow-up question. Do you think human
Gosh,
beings are wired for connection or survival?
that's a really interesting question.
Take your time with it.
I feel like probably survival, but I feel like when we also say survival, connection is a part of that. Because in order to survive, we need to be in community, and rely on other people too. So I feel like that's a part of survival.
But how are you going to form community without connection?
Wait. Because what I'm saying is that maybe we are wired for survival, but a
Hmm.
part of survival is to,
Okay, that
yeah.
makes
So like
sense.
survival is yeah, we're wired for survival, but a part of survival is to create connection.
So connection comes first because you have to connect to survive. No? Anyway, trick question.
Yeah.
Let's connection is big. We go back to your point. Connection is big. And yeah, I think connection is such an important piece. For me, I've always felt like connection is the basis of humanity because without that, you can't do it alone. If man could move alone, then he would, but you need other people for me. And that's why I see connection as a pivotal piece when it comes to being a human. So I'm glad that you kind of have that as one of your values too. Okay, so we're gonna move from connection. It was growth, connection, and then health. Talk to us
Yeah.
about health.
Health is a huge value of mine. I really believe in taking care of your mind, body, soul. And for me, movement is such a key part of my life, whether that's going to the gym, going for a walk, or doing Pilates. Same thing with eating healthy as well. I just love making food that makes me feel good. And so health is a huge part, huge value. It's how I feel my best. And yeah.
Okay. Have you ever faced a health scare in your life?
Not necessarily like a huge health scare. When I was in maybe like 8 years ago, I had to go to the hospital because my appendix was about to burst. But that's
Shoot.
about it. No
That's
other health scare really, thankfully, touch wood. Yeah.
yeah. You better knock on wood because health is wealth.
Yes.
Health is wealth.
Yeah. But I think growing up, you know, seeing my parents and like the way that like I'm half Asian, half British. So
Mm-hmm.
my dad's the one who's Asian. And their love language is always feed the people, and he cooks all these great dishes and everything. And sometimes they're not always the healthiest. And so, yeah, growing up, I feel like just seeing him, the way that he shows his love and appreciation for other people has always been through food. And he really
Mm-hmm.
struggled when I, would decline his food and choose something a little bit healthier. But yeah, and also just seeing my mom on her journey, she's always struggled with her weight. And so that's been
Mm-hmm.
something that has been a big impact for me. Just how can I also like motivate her to feel her best too and
Right.
to work on her health journey. I think
Mm-hmm.
as we get older, we also realize our parents are getting older and just how, we really want them to take care of their own health too. And that's something that's weighed heavily on me. So yeah,
Mm,
health is a huge value. I just want to make sure that I practice what I preach as well and
right.
can inspire my parents to work out and eat healthy.
I like that. I like that. I like that. That's a very beautiful point you touched on. Once you start working on your own health, it can serve as an inspiration to those around us. And as we age and grow, I do believe it's very important to share the knowledge that we continue to come across, because it becomes very important to just bring people along.
For sure.
And the last value for you was responsibility.
Yes,
How
responsibility.
how did that come about?
I actually heard it from Emma Greed. She's someone who really
Mm,
inspires me. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her. She has her own podcast, Start With Yourself, and she also just recently wrote a book, but she was pretty much talking about how, your life is your responsibility. Like, no one is here to save you. You really have to take accountability and take responsibility and ownership of your life. And I just really love that because I think as scary as it can be, it's also freeing in a way because we are so responsible for our actions and how we show up. Like we are in full charge of our life and
mm,
in creating the life that we desire and in choosing the way that we show up. So we always have that choice. That is our responsibility.
mm,
I feel like that just gives me a sense of purpose and
mm.
responsibility, to choose like every day to show
Yeah,
up.
the reality that shapes our lives is basically a series of choices that we make every single day when we wake up. And that's, if you strip it down, it becomes personal responsibility. I was listening to something the other day as well, and I think it might resonate with this, but just in a different shade. They were talking about belief systems and how belief systems can significantly impact how you show up for your day to day. So they were framing belief systems in a way that, let's say you are aging and exercise is no longer something that adapts to your body the same way. Person A might look at that and say, well, it's because I'm getting old. And that's their belief. That's their mentality. But then you shift that same conversation to person B, and person B is like, well, I want to see how adaptable my body can get at age 35 or age 40 or age 45. Uh, Those are two people who are battling fitness journeys, but their approach is different. And there's a higher likelihood that the person who sees themselves as adaptable and growth oriented with their fitness journey will show up on a day to day, as opposed to the person who feels as though, well, my body's giving up on me, so I'm not going to do anything. And for me, it gave me perspective on the responsibility that we have to consistently challenge our mental and our minds and our belief systems to always grow in the right direction. And it's hard. It's really hard. But as you said, like if you have a choice, you have a choice to do either A or B. So I can really resonate with that, with the responsibility aspect. And I had never looked at responsibility as a value till you mentioned it. So thank you so much for sharing that.
No, I love the mindset piece too, because I think it is so important, just like really understanding the power of our mind. And
Mm-hmm.
just a lot of us can really get stuck in these negative loop patterns, of just these cycles of constant negative beliefs. And one
Mm-hmm.
thing that I found super helpful for myself to switch that
Mm-hmm.
is to really create a clear vision of who my future self is. How does she show up?
Mm-hmm.
And how can I connect with her a little bit more each day? And
Mm,
again, that does kind of come back down to your values too, of having that clear value system so that it gives you that direction to keep on aligning with that future version of yourself. And there's
right.
this book called The Compound Effect. Have you heard of it?
Darren Hardy.
Oh yeah, I just love it's such a simple like concept. There's I think there's like an example, I haven't read it for years, but where there's 3 different
Mm-hmm.
guys and
Mm-hmm.
one guy, he decides to just spend 30 minutes a day extra watching TV, eats like an extra few hundred calories a day. Uh,
Yep.
he's kind of declining. Whereas the middle
Mm-hmm.
person, he's just staying the same, nothing's changed about his routine. And then the third
Yeah.
person, he decides, okay, I'm going to cut like 200 calories from my diet. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
spend 30 minutes reading rather than watching TV. And
Mm-hmm.
it just kind of like portrays the difference in their journey. And you don't really see these changes on a daily basis, but all of a
Right.
sudden, all your decisions will compound over time. And like a year later, you're going to be in such
Mm-hmm.
a different place, whether that's getting you closer or further away from your goals. And so I feel
Mm-hmm.
like because we can't always see our progress on that daily basis, that weekly basis, we tend to give up or feel like, oh, like it's not meant for us when really we just
Right.
hold on and we just see that future. Yeah.
If you just took a little bit more time. True.
Yeah.
I really love that. That book is phenomenal. Really changed my perspective on long-term thinking. But I want to take you back to the belief point because you said that one of the ways that you go against your limiting beliefs is envisioning your future self. Are there any specific limiting beliefs that you've experienced that you've worked on with that same tactic or others?
I mean, there's so many limiting beliefs that I think I've had, and that I have overcome, but not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily through changing my mindset, but also just through pushing myself to taking action. Because
Oh,
I feel
so
like,
walk me through that.
yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to we can sit there and we can try and change our minds and try and overcome our limiting beliefs by saying these affirmations. And maybe that can work for some people. But for me, I really need to kind of just expose myself and just show myself that I can do it. Like, I need to take action and I need to build that evidence that, hey, this isn't so bad, or hey, it's okay. Like, if you suck, you're gonna get past this, first part of it, and you'll learn
Mm-hmm.
something, you'll grow, and you can keep on going. When I feel stuck or feel like
Mm.
I have a limiting belief, I pretty much tell myself that I don't have to be perfect to start. I just need to start. Because
I
nobody is
love that.
perfect when they first start out. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you really do just need to put in the reps and to how are you going to get better if you don't try? Or how are you going to even know if you don't start and take that first step?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really been about just giving myself the permission to just try and to fail. And
Mm.
one thing my boyfriend always tells me is you can't fail like you don't stop, which is something that I love because you really can't. If you're willing to see it through, you have to start somewhere and it's not going to be perfect.
You can't fail if you really stop. That one stuck. That one stuck. So I love that. And to flip that, I think what you said is so real. There comes a point where you have to look at things from a perspective of, let's say you're struggling to post content, or posting content is a process of you getting better at your craft. You have to look at it from a perspective of, this is the process of getting better. I have to go through this pain threshold to get better, for me to get on the other side. Because on the flip side is I procrastinate or I don't do it and I don't get better. So you have you have a choice. And I like what you
Mhm.
said, like not necessarily pushing yourself, but taking action. Because motivation will fade on some days. We're not always going to be motivated to do the things that we love to do. So there's moments where you'll have to have a different conversation with yourself and tell yourself, hey, you know what? This is the process of getting better. So I need to get better. Rather than seeing it as an obstacle, you're seeing it as a push forward towards that future version of yourself that is a better version of what you were today. So I can
Mhm.
definitely agree with that. And also, one thing I love about your story is your healing just hasn't stayed internal. It's also evolved with how you show up for others and with movement and fitness as well. So I believe movement and fitness is a big part of your life now. I'm curious to know, when did you realize that fitness was connected to your mental and emotional well-being?
Yeah. I mean, I grew up playing soccer, so I was always fairly active. I was probably Like there was 2 soccer practices a week and then soccer game on every Sunday, and so I always grew up really active and loved playing sports and always been super active growing up, and once I graduated high school, I kinda retired my, soccer life, unfortunately,
Yeah.
whatever. So then I started going to the gym. I
Mm-hmm.
was pretty inconsistent with it, you know, I feel like it was kind of a weird transition after high school, you know, you don't really have much of a system, I guess, guiding you anymore or like set
Yeah, there's no
structure of
structure. Yeah, you've
no
lost it.
structure,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's
Yeah.
kind of about creating it for yourself. I was young and a little immature and figuring it out. And I was in
What
a
did you do?
relationship.
What did you do?
Well, you know, I went to Australia with some friends and for about a month, so just did a little bit of traveling, and then I originally was planning on going to school to become a nurse, and
Mm-hmm.
I lasted 2 semesters in school, and I decided
Mm,
it's not for me. I'm gonna try something else, which is what led me to the lash course. Yeah, I was in a relationship and, you know, we were together for like 3.5 years or so, but we had
mm-hmm.
very different values. And so
Mm,
I just found like that relationship didn't really support the version that I really wanted to become. So
mm,
throughout that, I kind of lost myself a little bit. And that's when
mm-hmm.
I really felt the disconnect with myself the most. And it
Mm,
wasn't until after that relationship ended where I was able to go through that heartbreak and really have it be the catalyst for my own personal growth and own personal healing. And that
mm,
is what led me to movements to be my outlet. That's just a way that I committed to showing up for myself every day is to move my body, to eat healthy, and that's honestly just what made me feel my best. I love spending the time in the gym. I love just being by myself and working on myself in that way. And it just gave me so much more energy.
Wow, that's quite the story. You know, moving to Australia for travel, heartbreak, reconnecting with yourself, finding yourself again. I think relationships are a good mirror for what you need to work on. And at such a young age, sometimes we don't have the emotional capacity to process some of the things that are happening in real time. You only come to find out years later. You're like, oh damn, what was I thinking? But that's the beauty of life, you know, you live and you learn. But I'm glad that you found solace in movement. Do you think discipline and self-love are the same thing or they're different?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I think of self-love, I think of it as less of like, oh, like I love myself. You know, I think of it more as like an action. Like, how can we create acts of love for ourselves? And I
Mm,
think being able to have discipline is a way to give ourselves that structure to show up for those acts of love for self.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think of self love more as an action, and then discipline is something that supports creating those systems to then show up for those actions. So I think it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, like they can coexist. I think you're very action oriented from what I'm picking up. You prefer being the action rather than the words of affirmation, you know, the opposite of, you know, taking action. So for you
Yeah,
it
I mean,
makes
I think
sense.
yeah, I think, like, in the past, I've just tried, like, affirmations and, you know, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with affirmations, but I think there's, like, more to it, you know? Like, you can say these affirmations, but you also need to have the actions to back it up because we need to show ourselves that it is possible for us. And that is kind of where we can create that self belief.
Right.
And it can be through taking half a step forward and then another half step. It doesn't have to be all at once, but I think slowly exposing ourselves and slowly just proving to ourselves that we can and that we are capable through these little small actions is really the key. And that also gives us that belief, that mindset of like, hey, like that actually wasn't so bad, or I can do this, you
Mm,
know?
mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so definitely feel like I am a little more action focused.
Yeah, so when I love that. I love that, you mentioned you take little steps, little by little becomes a lot. And people really underestimate, to go back to the compound effect concept, we underestimate what we can do on a daily basis that can prorate to 5-year plan or whatever. Which brings me to another question I like asking people. When you look at yourself being action oriented, do you think you're a big picture, working from a big picture, moving back? Or you like to build from a small picture and then build it up to the bigger picture?
Yeah, I think I'm a mix of both, to be honest. I have
Mm-hmm.
a bigger picture in mind of where I do want to go, but that is also something that is still a little unclear. So right now I'm
Mm,
doing what I can with what I know, with what aligns with my values, and taking those small steps forward to keep
mm-hmm.
allowing myself to expand and grow on this path, and also just be open minded to opportunities that come my way and not to
Mm-hmm.
close myself off fully, So I do have a clear kind of direction that I want to go, but it's not like set in stone,
Yeah.
I'm gonna allow room for it to ebb and flow and to change
I'm
as I
fluid.
go.
I'm fluid.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
fluid. It's okay to be
I'm
fluid
fluid.
because yeah, you're fluid just like water, you know what I'm saying? And I love that. I love that because I learned this concept recently and it's based on fixed identities. We and it was in relation to how we see ourselves. So there's a part of us that tends to label and put ourselves in a box. Like this is what I do and this is who I am. And I can't really do anything else. But you haven't actually tried something else. Or you
Yeah.
haven't given yourself the grace to expand your identity or see yourself as something that's more fluid and movable rather than this is just what I know and this is what I'm always going to do. So I like the fact that you said you're kind of in between the process of figuring it out because there's no right way. Everybody has a different way of doing things. You come to realize that when you talk to people who are either more accomplished than you or you see as superior, quote unquote, because you get to ask them and you're like, how did you get here? And you realize there's no one answer. Everyone's journey is completely different. And that is okay. It's very okay to take different routes to get to the same place. I give this analogy of we both can train for a marathon, but you can be somebody who loves training in the morning rather than at night. And I can be somebody who enjoys training at night rather than in the morning. But the same goal is we're both going to run the marathon on the same day. It doesn't really matter how or when you train or how your training regimen looks like. At the end of the day, the goal is to go win the marathon and show up for the marathons.
Yeah. I love that metaphor too. It's great.
I think you mentioned being somebody who uses movement a lot. What's your relationship with rest?
Sometimes rest is something I struggle with a little bit, not gonna lie. I'm working on
Mm,
that. I tend to feel a little bit guilty when I'm not doing anything. I definitely tie my self-worth a lot to being productive or to being
mm-hmm,
busy. And so I'm really good at getting myself in these cycles of being on the go and just being one thing after the other. And so when I find that I have a moment to just like, I actually don't have to be anywhere right now, I can just hold on for a second
mm-hmm,
and chill. I find that very uncomfortable. And in my mind, I feel like maybe I should be doing something though. Like I feel like I shouldn't just be sitting here. Like I need to go do this. Like, I'm wasting my time. So
mm-hmm,
one thing that I'm doing to kind of work on that a little bit more is to stop rushing. So taking my time
mm.
when I do things and not necessarily being on the go when I don't have to. Time really does slow down when you slow down.
Okay. How much of the time slowing down can you equate to you being in alignment versus being in survival mode? Because a lot of the time when you're rushing through things or you're trying to get things done, I find you're coming from a quote unquote survival mode mentality where you
Yeah.
think not everything is meant for you or you're not enough or you have to overcompensate. So how much do you think alignment versus survival mode plays a role in resting. Just resting because it is important.
Yeah. Yeah, I know rest is super important. And, when I look at my week and my schedule, everything that's in my week is tied to giving me the experience to grow in the way that I need to for my business. And so
Mm-hmm.
the way that I've kind of seen the season right now is that it's been a bit of a sprint just to learn, grow, get as much experience as I can with teaching Pilates with, my clients. And then I also teach Legree as well. So just a lot been going on. And so I kind of accepted that this is a season of go. And there are,
Does it feel like you're in alignment though, despite being
it
on
does
go?
feel like, yeah, it does feel like I am in
Okay.
alignment. I did have to check myself last week because it was feeling a little bit too overwhelming. And so I
Mm,
sat down and I took a look at my schedule and did a little bit of an audit because I felt like I had so much energy being put out that it was draining me a little bit. And in order to
mm-hmm.
show up and be my best in all parts, I needed to create some more space. And
Mm,
so I did take some time to audit my schedule, to realign. So maybe,
mm,
yes, you're right. Maybe it was a bit of survival. And I needed to check myself because I was feeling a little bit all over the place and overwhelmed. And
mm-hmm.
needed to align my time a little bit better with creating that space and to slow down. And that's where I'm currently at now, making sure I'm not rushing. I'm
Mm,
prioritizing my sleep. That is
mm.
something that is huge for my well being,
Everyone's well-being. I think everybody
everyone's
should sleep.
well being for sure.
Everybody should
So,
sleep.
yeah, anyways.
So
So, yeah, you're right.
in
You
such
got
an
me there.
overwhelm I love a conversation like this to challenge you, and you challenge me because it elicits growth, right?
Mhm.
But to touch base on the struggling season that you've ensued over the past couple of weeks, what are some of the practices that you have dived into to regulate yourself, not only in this season, but in previous seasons and the seasons to come?
I would say journaling is a huge one for me.
Mm-hmm.
I find that I can get very in my head a lot, especially being on the go. I feel like I really need to create space and time for me to think and then also
Mm-hmm.
to just let out any thoughts that I'm having that might not be serving me or any overwhelm that I might be feeling. Journaling is a huge one for me, just being able to let it out and not hold it in and just to gain a little bit more clarity and also see like what thoughts are being like cycled over and over again that
Mm,
aren't in alignment.
right.
Like, where are my blind spots that my ego might be holding on to or,
I love
uh
journaling. Just to add into that before you give me the next one, I love journaling because of one thing that you kind of touched on, pattern recognition. I think a lot of us go through days, weeks, months, years without ever realizing that some of our days are literally carbon copies of the same thing, especially when it comes to the thought process. You might do different things, but if you sit down and analyze your thoughts, you come to realize that if you're not really self aware of what's going on in your head, you can ruminate on the same things for a long time. And that can hold you hostage when it comes to moving forward or dealing with the things that you have to deal with head on. So I really that's for me, that's one of the wins that I see from journaling. So I'm super happy that you're also tapped into that in your own process and procedure because I think it's super important to be aware of what's going on in here.
Mhm. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I love it. It's been a game changer for me for sure.
And what else did you say you get into?
Another one, which I'm so grateful for, it comes back to that connection piece and just the people that I have in my life when I'm
Mhm,
feeling overwhelmed or like I need to calm down. I find just spending time with the people that I love is really grounding for me. I think just having those people that really see you for who you are
mhm,
and just like have that calming and grounding energy about them that when you're just with them, you feel like you can just breathe and slow
Right.
down. And, you know, with my friends, we tend to spend a lot of time walking and talking. So we'll go for nature walks and we'll just chit chat the whole way. And that is something that is just so soothing. So, like nature walks with my boyfriend, we love going to like Vancouver, different parks in Richmond, any all over the place around the lower mainland. We'll just explore. We love going on hikes too. So just being outside is something that's also healing for me. I
Mm-hmm.
do meditate as well. I find that that
Mm,
is also super grounding. But
right.
it all comes down to having a daily practice for me. So I essentially
Mm,
have a toolkit of things that I can turn to in these moments, you know? I know
right.
that when I'm feeling overwhelmed, when I'm feeling like I need to slow down, I know the tools that I can come back to. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a bunch of different ones of those. So it's really just what's accessible in that moment. And I find the most
Right.
common one I come back to is the journaling because that's super easy.
Right.
But
Game changer. Game changer. Definitely having a toolkit for your mental, emotional well being, but also having those routines like the morning routine or the nighttime routine pre bed before you go to sleep. And then when you wake up, I think they can give you a good guideline on how your day will look like. So
Mhm.
yeah, happy for you for navigating that. I think being a creator in the social media space is that's a different beast in itself. You know, you can do the inner work, you can show up for yourself, but social media as a concept constantly pushes consistency and performance, and that can be a lot. So as somebody who's navigating that world in real time, building a brand on social media in real time, how do you stay connected to yourself in that environment?
That's a really good question. It's definitely challenging for sure. I think as long as you just show up on social media like the same way that you would in person, you know, like making sure that you're also just like authentic in both worlds and not just being
Yeah.
like a different kind of person on social media because,
Yeah.
you know, like there's no point in being fake in one either way. So I feel like as long as you show up authentic on social media and in person, you know, you can kind of mesh the worlds a little bit together.
We see it pretty much the same way. I remember I was telling somebody, I think the day social media shifted for me was the day I realized if you show up just the same way you show up in your real life, it doesn't become a distraction because there's no performance. Like whatever you see is what you get, and what you get is what you see. So I don't necessarily have to put up a front or put up a persona to regulate a different type of individual that I am in real life.
Yeah.
And just same as you, I feel like that regulates me in a very different way than I experienced it when I was growing, like early in my early 20s and in my teenagers.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to remember like, why are you showing up on social media? Like, what are you posting for? And like, how is this content
Hmm.
serving other people? Like, it's not about you, it's about your. The community that you want to build. It's about how can you help other people. And so I think when you take the pressure off of like, well, like, what are people gonna say about me? Or like, it's not about you, you know? It's like you're building a
Hmm.
brand, you're building this not to serve yourself, but you're building it to serve other people and create that community. So I think that is also key to keep in mind of the purpose behind it all.
But do you ever have those moments that you succumb to the pressure of content creation versus your purpose? Have there been moments that
Mm,
you felt challenged by that?
all the time. I struggle with that all the time. I think creating
And how do
content
you
is
handle
a
that?
whole I think it's just really understanding like who are you creating this content for? Understanding that avatar, you know, and then creating content from that point. Creating content is so hard. I struggle with that still, to be honest. And like showing up
Yeah.
consistently is something that I'm working on with that.
What part of the process do you struggle with? What part of the content creation do you struggle with
I
if you dig
struggle.
deeper?
I think I'm going to go against what I just said, but I think I have a slight fear of what other people. I have a slight fear of being seen. So I'm
Whoa, 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 whoa,
quite
whoa, whoa. You
I know, I know. Yeah, but when it comes to my business page, I have no problem showing up for that. But in building like a personal brand, that's where I struggle with being seen. Just, obviously with my business page, people are following me because they already know what I do. And I
Right.
feel like I already have that permission to kind of show up and post content in that way and be a little bit more vulnerable. But when it comes to growing a personal brand, for example, that's the part of where I really struggle when it comes to content. I feel like there's people who follow me on that account have known me in a different way before, when I was in high school, and just it feels harder to kind of overcome that challenge of posting on that account. So I think that is where I get stuck in content. But when it comes to my
Mm.
business page, I feel confident in sharing and showing up and being vulnerable. So I don't know what it is. It's not necessarily just like social media itself, but the connection that I have to it in those two different ways, business versus personal.
That's such an interesting overview to the pain point of content creation, as you said. I have so many follow-up questions, but because I struggled with the same thing, which
Mm,
is so funny. The personal and business aspect is a real thing. But for me, it's a different reason. It's not because I'm scared to post on my personal. It's
okay.
because I never wanted the branding aspect to dilute my individuality. So I never wanted to be the brand. I never wanted to not be able to travel and post my food and do the normal human things, because I've always felt like there's a certain way you have to carry yourself when you are the brand. And I said, nah, I want to be free. I'm not doing that. I need a separate page with a separate
Mm-hmm.
name, with something that I can be the face of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it represents the purpose and the alignment that I want to get out of life. But it's not going to limit me into just being that, because I have a fear, I had a fear of, if I made my personal brand the main point of focus, I wouldn't be able to go to a concert and post. So
Okay.
for me, that's the reason. So when I look at your situation, it becomes a point of, and this is just observation, no judgments.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to put a name on the people that you actually think limit you from doing that, would you come up with a list of more than 5 people or even 3 people?
Honestly, probably not.
Okay. And then my follow up question would be, when you think about your problems, when you wake up in the morning and you think about your problems and you think about what you have to get going and you think about what you have to eat, what time you got to train, what time you got to take your supplements, how much time do you actually allude to people outside of you, your boyfriend, and your parents, and maybe just the immediate people that you see on a day to day?
Not much
How
time.
much time?
Not
So
much.
the same thing that
Yes.
the same thing that I just outlined right now is the same thing that those people from high school and the people from Australia and the people from
Oh gosh.
your past that you don't necessarily see or get to interact with, they don't have the time. And this is something called the spotlight effect. We tend to think people think a lot more about us than they actually do. And that's the only reason for me I've survived in social media. Think about scrolling. If you go to Instagram right now and you see a video and you scroll past it, you're not thinking about it 5 minutes, 3 minutes after you scroll. It's gone, done. Unless it impacts you in a certain way, it was in your chain of thought for half a second or two, and it's gone. And then you go about your day. That's the same way people come when it comes to like social media and content. They'll see your
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and after that, they go about their day. They got way bigger problems to think about. Somebody got a phone bill to pay. They're not.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They're, they're
No.
thinking about
And I
other
honestly like
stuff.
I know that nobody at the end of the day, like if I post, like nobody really cares, you know? So I know it's like this is something that I know. I think I
Whoa, whoa,
just
whoa, whoa! I didn't say they don't care. I say they don't think about you like that. No,
oh my
don't
gosh.
misquote me. So
Okay, okay,
I'm
okay.
I'm just
Sorry, sorry.
I'm just trying to like give you like a challenge to get out of your head,
Mm-hmm.
because maybe for you, you want to use your personal business, your personal page more for like a branding perspective. I don't know. Maybe that's how you want to move. I just want to tell you, like, go ahead and do it. Like, get out of your head, try it, see the response, see how your body feels, see how your nervous system feels, and then at the end of the day, if it's just not clicking, some things just don't click, and that's also okay.
For sure.
But you've mentioned about how your parents and your boyfriend play a big role in how you show up. Do you think people can truly love others deeply if they don't love themselves?
I feel like people can love other people deeply, even if they don't feel that same sense of love for themselves. And I think that there is no, cap to how much we can, you know, pour that love into others. But I do think that when we have that love for ourselves, it does give us a little bit more self worth. And when we have that, we show up for others in a different way. Like they're looking for it to be reciprocated back in a way.
Mm.
Whereas, like, the love that comes from someone who also loves himself deeply, like, they're giving that to you and they're not expecting anything in return.
When you mentioned that, I think what came to my mind is the concept of giving from an empty cup.
Mhm.
Because somebody who has self love is somebody who has filled their cup and they can extend that extra love without expecting anything in return, as you said. But if I'm loving from an empty cup, it becomes paramount that I need something from you, and eventually that's not going to be sustainable
Mhm.
because I'll consistently need you to pour into me to
Yeah.
offset the side that I don't have when it comes to self love. And for me, it's not an equitable equation that has long-term success. So I think in
Mhm.
as much as there's no cap when it comes to love, there has to be some sort of balance when it comes to how you show up for yourself first, because that will definitely impact how you show up for others. And people tend to meet others where they're at. So if the level of self-love that I've reached for myself is at a level that you can't relate, the equation becomes imbalanced. And that's where
Mhm.
minor resentments and trivial fights come in because we're not seeing the concept of love in the same mindset.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah, I totally agree. You worded it a lot
you
better than
can
I.
you can still lay it out when you think about it, because I feel like that's something that I'd be interested to know how you process. So when speaking about love, like, what does healthy love look like to you compared to earlier versions of yourself? Like, when you look at healthy love, what does that look like?
Like, in relationship or just, like, in general?
Let's actually quantify it in relationship, self, and purpose, which is your work.
Okay. Well, I guess with self, again, I feel like it goes back. I mean, I really think of love as an action, obviously, but yeah, I think just like how we show up for ourselves and how we create that space for ourselves to nurture our well-being is an act of love, and I believe that that is self-love. And so the way that we show up for ourselves, the way that we set our boundaries, the way that we, just kind of like take that accountability for ourselves and for our lives is self love. So
Mm.
that is what I think. And when it comes to relationships, again, I do think it comes through act. So just learning how that other person likes to be receives love, I think that's super important, not just to give love how you like to receive it, but also to continuously learn how the other person likes to receive it, how they feel most loved. Just always being in constant communication and just making sure that you're allowing room for each other to grow individually, but also how do you come together and grow in relationship as well. I think that's so important. And
Right.
a huge part is also play, like learning how to just like have fun and like laugh together is like love. I think we
Yeah.
get so serious in life. And
Hmm.
one thing that has been so healing for me in this relationship has been like, we just do so many fun things that has really brought out my inner child and just given me the permission to just be fun and just let loose and like
Just, yeah.
just play, like whether that's playing pickleball or just any kind of other sport or just playing card games or something, like not taking life so seriously and allowing that play in relationship is,
It's so pivotal. It's so
yeah,
pivotal. When's the last time you played? Like outside of sporting activities, if you were to think of something that immersed your whole inner child and it just came out, when was the last time you played?
last weekend. I mean, like, can I say pickleball? I don't know. I find that so,
That's
no,
that's a sport. That's kind of like a sport. So that's like a fitness activity. But if you were to go beyond that, I'll give you an example. For me, it was also last weekend. I did go karting for the first time, and my inner child came out because that's playing video games and stuff like that, of racing cars. So emulating that on a
yes.
racetrack was so liberating.
Well, then that's a great question. I will say last week as well, we had a little games night with our friends and we played some board games and then we also played some Mario Kart. And I hadn't played Mario Kart in a really long time. And that was really
Yeah.
fun. So,
Are you good at it?
yeah, yeah.
Did you win?
No. So maybe I need to practice a little more.
Okay. Well, that's
Yeah.
that's really nice. Yeah, that's really nice. And it sounds like you have a lot of community around you, people, things that help you navigate life. How important is community in healing for you?
I think it's really important. I think just being able to express our emotions with the people around us and like feel heard and seen by other people can help acknowledge where we're at in our own journey. And also, sometimes we just need to express ourselves to release and just feel heard. And other times we need to express ourselves and release and gain a new perspective. But I think like having community is such a huge part. And that's why I'm so like passionate about that through my work as well. Being able to hold that space for people through our appointments, through our movement practice, whatever it might be. Yeah, I think it's so important.
Yeah, I agree with you. I I think community is a big part of integration when it comes to healing because we live in a society that has pushed forward the narrative of work on yourself, do things for yourself, show up for yourself. But at the end of the day, you can never know how much of that work actually works if you don't engage with other people. So
Hmm.
integration becomes such a key aspect of how you show up to the world and how you show up for your healing and showcase that to the world. So I agree with you. Community is such a big part and pivotal role when it comes to completing the cycle of healing. So I'm glad you have that for yourself. If you could speak to the version of yourself that once felt empty internally, what would you tell her now?
I would tell her that everything's going to be okay, to just have a little bit more faith in yourself. And it's okay not to know all the next steps that you need to take, but just trust that you can take the next step and trust that even if you don't know everything in this moment, that you have everything available to you and you are capable of learning what you need to know. So I would say just trust the process, have a little bit more faith, and believe in yourself a little bit more. Everything will be okay.
Hey, man. I Everything is gonna be okay. It is such a cliche a piece of advice, but when you actually look back, it's literally works every time. That's why it's cliche because you find that every day you worry about so many different things, and a month, 2 months, 3 months from now, those things don't even matter. They're so trivial compared to what you have to deal with in that moment. So I love that. Thanks for sharing that. Everything is going to be okay. When you look at your journey, I want you to give me one word that encompasses this journey and why. When you look at a journey, it all boils down to
One word. Mm, I would say growth.
growth.
Yeah.
Tell
Yes.
me
It has
why
really,
growth.
I mean, I think having your own business definitely pushes you to grow. It definitely pushes you to get out of your comfort zone. It forces you to learn new things. It forces you to be uncomfortable, to try new things. And it also pushes you, like, in your own personal journey to grow as well as a person. I think a lot of growth has come over the years and a lot of change, a lot of good change, but definitely growth has been the key theme
Perfect.
in building.
Well, I wish you limitless growth. Social media, where can people find you if they want to connect with your
Yeah.
socials?
So you can find me on Instagram. My Instagram is at bellamada.co. And then my personal is by Isabel Jane. And that is my socials.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming through. I had a great time. It was a great conversation. I'm so glad you pulled up. I'm so glad you were very honest, vulnerable. For your first podcast, I think you entered flow state. So I'm super proud of you. And I can't wait to have you again when Bellamada has evolved and you evolved as well. And probably do it in person because I always tell my guests, I can't wait till I start doing in person conversations. So thank you so much for gracing us with your presence.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.